I don't get starstruck
Oh my God.
easily, and I've lived in LA for 15 years. But I gotta tell you, I'm schwitzing over here. I'm very starstruck. Are you noshing on anything? Before we just dive in, are you noshing on anything?
Nectar of the gods.
Love it. Same here. Coffee. Let's get the.
Yes.
Hopefully they'll sponsor us one day. Um, are you right now at your office in
I
Beverly Hills?
am. I am. I have a few. Today's like my meeting slash podcast day, but I have a few pre-ops today, so I came in.
Pre-ops. You are a plastic surgeon. You're a big time plastic surgeon. How did you get into that? And then we can dive into your personal backstory. But how did you get into plastic surgery? Because I promise you, in a couple years, I'm going to be very interested in plastic surgery.
No, for me, I was never like into like being pretty. I was such a nerd. Like I wasn't into beauty. I remember when I got engaged, I had to like run out and buy dresses because I didn't own any. I think I owned like one cotton dress from Guess or something. Like
Oh my gosh.
but I actually did wood shop in the fourth grade, and I thought I wanted to do either architecture or orthopedic surgery because I really enjoyed building with my hands. And I realized very quickly architectural is a desk job, so I didn't want that. And then I started shadowing an orthopedic surgeon. It was very cookie cutter.
Right.
So one of my friends was like, "Hey, it seems like you like to do stuff with your hands, but you want to be more creative. Why don't you look into plastic surgery?" So I started shadowing a plastic surgeon, and I never looked back.
That's incredible. That's really incredible. Now, I let's just dive right in to your
Mhm.
backstory. I know you were born in New York, but then you went back to Iran, but it was during the Islamic Revolution, and then you couldn't get out, but you got out. And can you, if you're comfortable,
Yeah, of
can
course.
you tell us a little bit about that, especially being born an Iranian Jew in New York and then going back to, I mean, the culture shock must have been
No, I mean,
obscene.
I was like a month old, so my parents
Okay.
wanted a US citizen. Basically, they could kind of see where Iran was headed. And so my mom, when she was 9 months pregnant, flew to New York, had me. So I'd be a US citizen. I'm an
Oh,
OG
okay.
baby. And then we went back when I was a month old. And then obviously the revolution went into full swing. And they wouldn't let Jews leave. So we were kind of stuck. Um, Eventually, there was the Iran-Iraq War happening from 1980 to 1985. There was bombs flying everywhere. Sirens would go off at night, very similar to what you hear in Israel right now. Um, Also, like, my parents could just see there was no future for girls, as we saw in the most recent uprisings also in Iran, instigated by mostly women. And so they made a plan to escape. So my father went to Vienna and said he was going on a medical trip. He was a pathologist. And so he waited there, was kind of working on visas while me, my mom, and my sister worked with the smugglers to get us out. So we got out through the path, long story, but we got out through the path through the desert into Pakistan. We were in Pakistan for 3 months. Very
Wow.
dangerous, close calls all the way. On my dad's side too, by the way. Like he said there's an 18-year-old like soldier when he was trying to get on the plane that could have literally like said no. You know what I mean? It was looking at him and looking at us, like that 18-year-old could have like messed up all the plans. So there's
Right.
like so many little things. But
Oh my
we were in
gosh.
Pakistan for 3 months. Finally got a visa to reunite with my father in Vienna. We were in Vienna for another 3 months until we got permission to come to the U.S.
Wow. And then you settled in Los Angeles.
Yes.
And have you ever left Los Angeles since living here,
Yeah,
moving here
so
as a
I went
child?
to college at Columbia University, and then I went to medical school in the Bronx at Albert Einstein. So I was in New York for 8 years.
So
And
you're brilliant, is what you're telling us.
just, immigrant, worked hard, had to become a doctor.
It's incredible. I think your story is wild and beautiful and gut wrenching. Does it does it upset you at all? I mean, I know it does because I follow you on Instagram and I see all of your posts. But what is it like seeing your alma mater flooded with such intense anti-Semitism, and on top of that, when you're speaking out, I see the comments that you receive.
Yeah.
They are breathtakingly disgusting. What is that like? Because your advocacy, you're so outspoken, which I admire. I I feel like behind a keyboard, I can be very outspoken, but I am frightened, to wear my Star of David and my hostage pin, and outside, and I'm in Redondo Beach,
Why are you scared?
petrified. Well,
Of what?
people, we
Of
have a
the
mezuzah on our door. My husband is very much like I'm a proud Jewish person, of course,
Yes, no, for sure.
but it's scary out there. It is
I don't think
scary.
so. I think it's scary out there in Iran.
Of course.
I think everything's relative. Here we're in America, there's laws here, like
Sure.
I'm not scared in America. I mean, I'm not stupid,
Right.
but I don't think you have any reason to not be loud and proud here in America. I really don't. I think the scarier thing is to give up your ability to be open about your religion and your thoughts and your speech. I always say it's use it or lose it. So that's exactly what they want. They want you in hiding. They want you, scared.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, that's not going to happen. We are not Jews with trembling knees. And I wear this sucker, this huge star on Fox News every time I go on. I wear
You
all it.
do. You do. I
My
see it.
kids, I asked them, what do you want for your birthday? They're like the biggest Star of David I can find. So no, we are not going back to Iran. We're not going back to Germany. We are loud and proud. Nothing will happen to you in Redondo Beach, I promise you. If anything does, people will come to your rescue. I guarantee it.
I will
Yeah.
say that's true. I was walking my dog a couple hours ago, and I met another lovely Jewish lady on the street, and I was wearing, oh, I don't have the cap right now. I was wearing, um, there's a Jewish federation called the Guardians in Los Angeles, and I was wearing the cap, and she noticed it, and she goes, me too.
Oh yeah, see?
She goes, tribal, tribal, and
So cute.
it was just so funny and heartwarming.
Yeah.
You mentioned you are on Fox News quite a bit.
Yep.
Um, now you were, which I find amazing, by the way, you were a host of a Netflix series.
Yes.
I think that is one of the coolest things in the world. Let me tell you, I've auditioned for HSN maybe like 9 or 10 times. I
Yeah.
got like 1 or 2 callbacks. So I don't see it like a large hosting career
I
currently.
feel like it's like a miracle when you get like a show. It's literally like getting married, It's like you
Yeah.
do so much and you finally meet the one and it's like a miracle. But it was definitely not a bucket list, it was a dream. It was my dream and I really wanted to do it on Netflix. I remember when we went, it was the first place we pitched to, and I just stayed on the Netflix lot for 20 minutes just praying and saying, I want it to be here. I want to be on Netflix, and I loved working with Netflix. They're so just logical and data driven and professional, and the people who work there are so capable, so intelligent, so hardworking. So it was really a fantastic partnership. I always appreciate Netflix for that, and I think it really was a great show. We got Emmy nominated.
You
um,
did.
did. It really, I think also just for the field of plastic surgery, I think it humanized it a lot. A lot of times people, what they see on TV is like makeover shows and like extreme shows and a lot of shows also that like are very fun and entertaining, but it's kind of like extreme stuff that people have done, and so this show was really very much real plastic surgery, why people get plastic surgery. It was very docu style, very emotional, very
Right.
touching, and I think it really changed how people view my field. And not only did I get a lot of great feedback from just regular people, but I got a lot of great feedback from my colleagues. I would get messages from my colleagues being like, "Oh my God, I had 2 patients, across the country. I had 2 patients today that came in because they saw your show and it gave them permission to do this for themselves."
Oh,
So
I
it was
love
just
that.
it was just a really big blessing that I will forever be grateful for.
Do you ever see it happening again?
Yeah, I love it. I love TV. I think I have, sort of gift for communication and taking kind of complex ideas and making it very understandable and palatable. I always say, I can help one person at a time, which I love doing, or by doing these shows, really you're affecting the masses, and that's why I also love going on Fox and saying what I
Mm-hmm.
think, and maybe people ask different questions, or see a different point of view, or
Mm-hmm.
learn from my life experience, and so I really love social media. I love going on TV and sort of,
Mm-hmm.
it's very powerful to be able to share my ideas and maybe just make people think slightly differently.
Yeah, I love watching you on Fox News, and I also love following you on Instagram. I love your posts. I gotta say, I find out, of course, modern news in the middle of the day, we get a lot of what's going on in the world through social media.
Yes.
And a lot of the time, especially when it comes to Israel, I go straight to your page. I'm like, okay, let's see what's going on. Let's do this. And I like I said before, I really admire how outspoken you are and how, like you said, data driven. You're very factual, but you're also very um, understanding, which I appreciate as a viewer, as a person, as a
Yeah.
fan, we'll say, and not to mention my family also adores you.
Thank you
So
so much.
I think this might be one of the first episodes that they'll listen to. No,
Great.
I'm kidding. My parents listen all the
I'm
time.
sure. I was gonna say.
Yeah,
No,
they're
but
my biggest
there's
fan.
different approaches. I think for the Persian Jews, I think we're a lot more of like a kind of a heavy hammer when it comes to explanations. I know like there's so many other people that are much more like patient and softer in their approach. And I think both are valid and I think both are needed. Sometimes I'll get people come to me and, they'll, from my own community, and they'll be like, oh, I understand what you're saying and I'm gonna, I changed the way that I have voted all these years, but can you just do it in a nicer way? And I'm like, no.
Right, right. We're living in a very odd time, especially when it comes to politics. But so I feel like so much of the political realm is now influenced by religion, and it's
Well, it's not,
weird.
I don't think it's religion. I think it's values, right? So, and religion is a very easy way, I think, especially when you're a parent. It's like a guidebook, right? So you can reinvent the wheel. And I'll give you some examples of the way people have. Like I know a lot of people that weren't raised with religion, and so they'll go pay unplugged in Santa Monica a membership fee to take their phones away. Well, that's Shabbat. Like you can go pay a membership for that. Or, for example,
Wait, what is
meditating.
unplugged?
It's a place where you go and you just kind of sit and you unplug. Like you sit and it like you can, relax, and they'll take your phone away. You know what I mean? So
Uh-huh.
yeah,
That
and
is Shabbat. Yes.
that's Shabbat, right? Or you can meditate every morning when you wake up, but that's prayer. So I feel like people have like, this effort to remove God and almost make people seem stupid for believing in God. Oh, you're stupid. Why do you believe in God? Or for example, I remember 5 years ago or so, Harvard's chaplain didn't believe in God. So they brought a chaplain who doesn't. Why would you call him a chaplain? Like call him
Right.
something else. But your chaplain should be a religious leader.
It's
So this idea of like removing religion or removing God also removes the value system
right.
that is, and it's funny, I saw another video the other day of this woman who has 1 million followers on TikTok, and she's kind of like a sex expert, and she was saying that we need to give more grace to pedophiles,
Excuse
right?
me? You
Yes.
know what? I think I saw that
Yeah.
video too.
Yeah. And so this is what happens when you get lax and you try to remove religion and try to reinvent the wheel. You lose your way a bit,
Right.
or a
And
lot of it.
well, I just feel like so much logic goes out the
So
window.
much logic goes out the window. And these things are tried and true for thousands of years, right? So it's like, why would you reinvent the wheel when
Right.
you can do what is known to make, and it's been studied also, Ashley, like it's been studied that people that believe in God are happier. Like that's
Uh-huh.
actual data. If you believe in God, you will be happier. It humbles you. It makes you understand that there's something greater than just you.
Right.
It
And that
makes you
there's this
work hard
overwhelming
towards a
being.
goal.
Mm-hmm.
What makes you work hard? You think, somebody, a higher moral standard is watching.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like stay within these boundaries. Like we look at kids, when you don't give them any boundaries, they run amok.
Right.
They're actually
Mm-hmm.
out of control. They feel chaotic. They don't feel grounded and centered and stable. It's the same
Mm-hmm.
thing with, as you get older, you need certain guidelines to feel grounded and stable and centered. And
Mm-hmm.
try to remove those guidelines that have been tried and true for thousands of years, and then you get unhappier people, people on medications, in
Mm-hmm.
therapy, all this stuff. Well, it's like, what did you expect?
And I also, on top of that, on medication and therapy and whatnot, and just lacking in a sense of drive.
Yeah,
This is something that my husband and I have talked about as we sort of get into, we're not, we don't have children yet, but we are, hopefully soon.
yeah.
And, Baruch Hashem, hopefully soon. And
Amen.
Toda. And we say we want our children to understand the value of a dollar. We
Yeah.
want them to obviously want for nothing, but we want them to work for what they want. And it's interesting the lack of values that I see and the lack of drive and of just this like the chutzpah behind the eyes or behind the work ethic that I'm witnessing just as I'm 33 and just in the last however long I've been in the workforce. And
Entitlement and lack of drive.
it's scary. And
It's
that's what I also I feel like these encampments on schools, the audacity that
yeah.
they have, I feel like that's such insane entitlement.
But it's entitlement, but it's also the fault of these schools, right? So if you have a kid
100%.
that goes and keeps stealing cookies from the cookie jar and you do nothing, that behavior won't change. And so it's also the appeasement strategy that's been taken by a lot of the schools. Not every school. We've seen that when they don't tolerate it, it's not tolerated. It doesn't creep back up. But it's also, a lack of accountability by a lot of these schools that have had, like Columbia University, anti-Semitism creep in over the last 15 years. And denial. I've told them for 10 years, you have an anti-Semitism problem, and they're like, no, we don't. Like, da da da. Look at what we're doing with the Israeli students. And I'm like, guys, you can't put lipstick on a pig. Like, you need to fix the problem. And now it's come to a head, and it's on display for the world to see. I stopped donating 10 years ago. I have a daughter applying to colleges right now who I'm not even applying to Columbia, and here I am, an immigrant, thinking like, oh, I have legacy somewhere. I have connections now. My parents didn't know anything, and like, look at what I'm able to give my kids, and I'm not even having them apply there.
Ugh, that must be so heartbreaking. You have
It's,
three
it's,
kids, right?
it's yeah, I have 3 kids, and it's, I'm not heartbroken about it just because I feel like my kids are going to be successful despite their location, and that's what I
Sure.
always try to teach them, and that's very biblical. It's not
Well,
about
yes, it is.
yeah, no, I mean, my rabbi was so funny. Like, I would always go on Saturdays, and he told the story of, God telling Abraham go to Israel. And so Abraham tells his brother Lot, hey, come with me. And Lot's like, no, if I want this land, you're going to take the good land for yourself. And Abraham's like, no, you want north, I'll go south. You want south, I'll go north. And so Lot's like, okay, so he goes. Lot gets all the fertile land, and then Abraham takes the desert. Abraham's able to make the desert bloom. Lot doesn't know what to do with the fertile land, so Abraham ends up going up and helping Lot as well. So the moral of the story, and it was like, it couldn't have come at a better time, was, teach your kids to be like Abraham, that they know the success is in their ability on the inside. It's not where they're located. And
Right.
so I teach my kids the same thing about college. I'm like, it's not about the location, it's about the work that you put in. It's about what you make of it. And the success is inside of you. You're going to be successful no matter what because you are a successful person.
Right. Have you ever thought about writing a parenting book? Because
I know, honestly.
I would read it from cover to cover.
There's so many books I need to write, but I think what I do for now is a lot of times I'll go speak at my, the temples in Los Angeles and the young professionals specifically, and hopefully we'll get something started that's a little bit more formalized. But they're hungry for it. All these like boss babe accounts and feminist accounts, and
Mm-hmm.
they've kind of led people astray. Like I always teach the women especially, like the most important thing is family. Like if you're gonna have a career, do both.
Mm-hmm.
Don't choose career over family because your job doesn't hug you when you get home at night. And all these people coming on, these celebrities coming on and being like, oh, it's 2 o'clock and I'm drinking because I don't have kids. It's like, that is so sad to me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I get so much enjoyment from my kids. I get so many laughs,
Oh,
so much gratification, so much purpose. They
mm-hmm.
are the joy of my life. And I have 3 teenagers, right? And they're just,
Oh,
we have the best time. Like, they're great. And so
mm-hmm.
any woman who says, oh, I don't want that or I don't need that,
Mm-hmm.
the next question out of my mouth is like, what was your trauma? Right? Because it's just completely unnatural. And one time I was at a dinner with these big influencers that and
Mm.
there was a girl there was a very high end, like sugar mama, basically. Like, not sugar mama, what do you call it? Sugar
Like
baby?
sugar baby?
Yeah, like,
Okay.
dating these rich men, whatever. And, she was going along that line. And I said, what's your trauma? And she actually got up and left. So,
She did? That's so crazy. I mean,
it's not crazy. I mean, it was obviously, she had a trauma, which is fine, but it's like work through your trauma because I really
mm-hmm.
think that you're missing out on like one of the biggest joys in life. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what is the purpose of females? To reproduce, to be a mom? And I mean,
It's this awesome power that
it
we
really
hold,
is. And I
and
didn't even like love being pregnant, but I love my kids. Like,
you didn't have easy pregnancies?
no, they were easy. I mean, I was a resident. I didn't have to even have time to think about whether I was
Sure.
pregnant or not. But I
Right.
mean, it was, it's uncomfortable and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
your hips hurt. And like, once you're like 7 months, you're like, how could I possibly get any bigger than this? And then you still have 2 more months to go. Like,
Ugh,
it was a
great.
lot.
Something
You're
to look forward to.
exhausted. Some people love it. Some people are like, oh, I love being pregnant. And I'm like,
One of my girlfriends, she has a 2-year-old now, and she was a bridesmaid in my wedding. I adore her, and she had a really rough time getting pregnant, and then her pregnancy was so difficult for her. And but she is the happiest I have actually ever seen her in our almost 20-year friendship.
yeah.
Um, I am a little nervous because my mom was put on bed rest with me for the majority of her pregnancy, and then I was 2 months early.
Hmm.
So I was in the NICU until 9 months, and it was just a whole to do. But fingers crossed
Yeah,
that
I mean,
doesn't.
mine were just straight for, I mean, I think I had them in like 15 minutes of pushing. Like, it was like super. Well, I delivered babies in medical school,
Amazing.
so I
Of
think like
course.
I knew how to push. I think a lot of times people like just don't know how to push. I tell
Uh,
people it's like taking the biggest poop of your life. Like, you literally have to,
oh
just, like, yeah. And I
God,
tell
Baruch
people,
Hashem.
yeah, like that's literally what it should feel like. And the earlier that you push well, when you have the energy to push, the better the
Hmm.
chances you have of actually getting it out quickly and not having to have this prolonged, crazy
Interesting.
delivery. Now, obviously, everyone's anatomy is different,
Hmm.
but I do think like having delivered babies in medical school was
That
definitely
helps.
helpful.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, you're in Beverly Hills.
Hmm.
Have you ever thought of leaving California, especially as certain parts of California have been, we'll say they've been crumbling over the last couple of years? Have you ever thought,
Not really. Like the
no?
Persian Jews we've only been in this country for like 45 years, and so we're
Mm-hmm.
still very much community driven.
Mm-hmm. And you have a huge community
There's a
here.
huge community here. There's also a very large community in New York where my sister lives, and I have family there too. I have aunts and cousins. Um, and honestly, like every time, I think like, oh, Florida or Texas, there's like a hurricane over there. So I think it's just better to just stay and fight and try to save California. I went to a dinner last night with a gentleman who's going to become our new DA.
Oh,
Um, yeah,
wow.
Nathan Hockman. Everyone go
Mm-hmm.
vote. But basically, it was really interesting. So he was telling me how Soros funded Gascon's first run, but
Mm-hmm.
Soros is not funding Gascon's second run. And so, for those of you who are listening who don't know, basically Gascon has this very soft on crime. He sees the criminals as the victims, not the victims as the victims. And so he has this policy, for example, if you steal less than $950, you don't get prosecuted. So there's just a lot of theft happening. There's so much crime. If you're under 18, even if you kill 100 people, they can't keep you in jail longer than your 25th birthday. So a lot of the gangs are recruiting 16-year-olds and 15-year-olds to try to get past. They're basically using all those laws. So it didn't work, right? So California is just like San Francisco's completely crumbled.
Yep.
Los Angeles, I think, is better off than San Francisco for sure. But there was like a gang of 30 kids on bikes that just like biked up to 7-Eleven like last week or like.
Oh, yeah, I saw that video.
And just ransacked it, and they stole less than $950. So, and their kids, so like nothing can happen. But I heard he was saying last night that a bunch of the moms actually brought their kids to the police station and said, "I want you to prosecute my child."
That's great. That's exactly the type of parenting that should be happening.
Yeah.
I like to hear that. It's interesting. We know a few people in San Francisco. My brother's actually been out there for over a year. He just got a new job, so I believe he'll be leaving in December, which is exciting. But he, as much as he has seen the crumbling nature of San Francisco, he said he's going to miss it, but not the fact that there's an app that tells you where there's human feces on each block. He's not going to miss that. But he's going to miss the relationships that he formed there.
Of course. I mean, that's everything, right? Is the human relationships. That's the best part of my job. Like everybody's always like, what's your favorite surgery? I'm like, I'm used to doing all the surgeries now. It's really like hearing people's stories and the relationships that keeps me going and keeps me really motivated as a surgeon. So no, I mean, I think that's, very true and very real is you're not going to miss the crime. Like I have friends up there that literally just leave their windows open. Like at night, if they're parked on the street, they just leave all of their windows open because it's like 100% chance that your windows are going to get broken. Yeah, so they just like drive, really like inexpensive cars and they roll down all of their windows and they just leave nothing in their cars so people don't break their windows.
And I heard that the major hospital in Oakland, the doctors and nurses and staff are no longer allowed to get lunch outside of the hospital because of all of the crime.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that one. But
I don't know if that's still happening. And that could have just been like a rumor for 1 week and then it was gone. But I do remember reading that.
No, but there is a lot of crime. I went there for a meeting like 6 months ago, and there was literally a police officer on every corner. And that, like St. Francis Hotel it's like on that square where it's like the Bloomingdale's, and Marcus, and all of the stores are closed. There's like a few stores open. It's just so sad. Those stores that have been like staples and
I hear
landmarks are gone.
Yeah, and I hear Fisherman's Wharf is just so. I mean, I was there like a year ago, and it's crazy.
Yeah, we definitely need a change, and I think Hockman's up by like 30 points, so he's definitely going to win. But we all still have to vote, and that's the other thing too, just being on your podcast. I just want to get the message out. Everyone vote. Like, people say, oh, my vote doesn't count in California. There are so many important local elections happening. You guys, the first post, it's pinned, it's blue. On my Instagram, Dr. Sheila Nazarian, is a voter's guide. Please use it. Get your parents and your aunts and your cousins, throw a brunch, have them all bring their ballots, and everyone vote.
Are you voting in person?
No, I already sent it in. Vote early. You guys, there's no way that we can make up 30 days of early voting in one day. There's no way. Mail it in. You'll get an email when the post office scans your ballot, and you'll get a second email when your vote's been counted. We can't keep repeating the same mistakes and expect a different outcome. Vote early, take advantage of it. Also, things happen. What if you're driving to the voting booth and you get a flat tire? What if that voting booth, the voter machines don't work? Like what happened in Arizona?
Right.
In Maricopa County. The Republican areas, all of a sudden, none of the voting booths worked on election day.
My husband and I were planning on voting in person, actually, but you can probably see right behind me, our voting. Oh, I'm pointing in the it's difficult. Right here are voting ballots. And okay, we'll
Just
we'll
send them
pre-vote.
in.
We were going to walk because we're a couple blocks away from one of the locations we could vote in person.
Right.
And okay, well, you've convinced me, Dr.
Yeah,
Sheila
send them
Nazarian.
in,
I
you
will
guys.
send it in.
Send them in. We cannot make up 30 days of voting in one day. It's impossible, and it's never worked in the past, so we can't repeat what doesn't work.
Now let me ask you another question. Going back to your time, well, your multiple times on Fox News, and I look forward to seeing you more there. Have you received backlash at work? Not so much from your colleagues, but have
Not at all.
people not
Only
at all?
support, only love. You know, that was the thing. Like I said, like I was expecting to lose my job. Like literally, like all my patients are gonna hate me. They are in tears when they see me. They are so grateful. You know, I'm sure some people have left. I know some people have left, but I've gained so much more. So no, I would repeat it all over again. I would do it exactly the same way. What you put out there is what you attract. So if you put out intelligence and what you really think, you will get like-minded people. And again, for me as a physician, if I had to talk about boobs all day, I would be burnt out by now. But
Sure.
literally, the patients come in, they know the way that I think. We have really intelligent conversations. We talk about religion and politics and you know, social commentary and really interesting stuff, and it makes me a better doctor because I'm not bored at work all day talking about the same exact things. So you will attract what you put out there. If you put out honesty, if you put out what you actually think, you will attract your tribe.
Right. That's exactly it. I love that. Attract what you think. I love that. I'm
Yeah.
gonna I'm
And even
going
my
to.
patients who disagree with me, they respect me enough to have an honest discussion. Or they'll come in, they'll be like, you know, I heard this from my friends. What do you think about it? Or isn't that terrible? And I'm like, no, that's not actually what happened. This is what happened. And I'll send them a link and they're like, oh my God. You know, so I think even people who might not think the way that I do, at least respect my thought process. And I've had
Yeah.
so many people fly from all over saying, you know, I'm choosing you as my surgeon because I like the way you think.
I love that. When you know what, if we end up leaving California, um, and there's a strong chance that my husband and I will. I mean, my family's on the East Coast, and as
Yeah.
we, as get
As you
into
have kids,
parenthood,
you need family for sure. You need the village.
um, but I will fly back when I decide to get plastic surgery.
Love it. I'm here. You know where I live.
I know where you live. I know where you work. I follow you on Instagram. I'll
Exactly.
DM you. I'll let you know I'm coming in.
Perfect.
So that's great that you don't get or receive a lot of anti-Semitism when it comes to your work. How about in your personal life? Because,
Not
like
at
I said,
all.
nothing. Okay.
No, I mean, you know, you have to understand 80% of the country supports Israel. 80%. So it's just
80%. Is
this
that right? Wow.
loud, yeah, it's a loud minority. Um, and again, if you don't exercise your freedom of speech and your freedom of thought, you will lose it. So just say what you think. I mean, you're in America. Imagine all
I
of the
know.
countries where there's no freedom of speech. And you're afraid in America? In Redondo Beach?
I know. It's so
No!
pitiful. It sounds
It is
ridiculous.
pitiful. Like, no, no, you need to literally, like, my kids will walk around with IDF shirts. Like, it's,
I love that. So we ordered one of my husband's fraternity brothers uh, started an IDF like clothing line. Well, just shirts
yeah.
that have like slogans and it says IDF, like just
Hmm.
supporting Israel, and the funds go towards the IDF. And uh, we bought a bunch
Yeah.
and we wear them inside. And Scott, my husband, he's good. I want to wear it to the gym.
Gotta wear
I'm
it to
gonna go out.
the gym.
And he says, tell them to come at me. Come
They
at
won't,
me.
though. They don't come at you. They go after people who appear weak. They don't,
Interesting. Can you
yeah, they're
expand on that a
actually
little bit?
really scared. They're actually really afraid. They're not like, they're actually the ones that are afraid. They don't go after people who they think can defend themselves or have the means to hire a lawyer.
I see. I understand. Right. Did you see a video I think it was last week of that pro-Palestine person taking down a Greek flag thinking it was
Oh
an
yeah.
Israeli flag. What is that? I mean, if you're going to fight for something, at least know what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, they don't know what they're talking about. Like, so many Americans don't know what they're talking about, but it doesn't even have to do with the Israel-Palestine conflict, like Trump derangement syndrome. Like,
Oh, I
how
saw
does
that
this
post too.
guy, the guy that was like on every cameo in every movie, if you wanted a successful movie in the 80s and 90s, you would have Donald Trump do a cameo. Home
Home Alone
Alone.
2.
Yeah. And now he's all of a sudden Hitler. It's like, what? Like, what are you talking about? You know, and I love that I posted on my Instagram that November 5th is a national IQ test.
I saw that post.
You know, like, are you serious? Like, are you, and there's a lot of like smart people, but I just feel like maybe they're smart, but they lack wisdom. Like, you can be smart at your company, or you can be smart at a niche thing, right? Or you can
Right.
maybe take tests well, but that doesn't make you wise, and it doesn't make you, I don't know, worldly.
Right. And I also think there's different education statuses for different problems and different causes and whatnot. So I think being educated on one side and not the other
Right.
works against you because if you only watch, I don't know, CNN is kind of turning right now,
Yeah,
but
it is
it
kind of turning, which is interesting to see.
very interesting. I'm shocked, but I'm also okay. Let's see if they're going to back this up. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah. We'll see where that goes.
but if you only watch what you're watching to gain your news, I mean, for example, your For You page is going to be what you click on.
Exactly, or what you like.
So
Yeah.
it's going to follow suit and also
Thankfully,
what you talk about.
thankfully, Fox has more viewers than all of the other networks put together. Literally, if you add up the viewers for all of the other networks, it's still less than Fox.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
And
So,
they have such a bad rep too.
well, because, people who tell the truth or, truth tellers are not liked sometimes, you know, and that's
Yeah.
okay. But I mean, I think again, Fox again. I just think, especially Trace Gallagher, which is the show I go on, is so generous, such moral clarity. I mean, he teaches me stuff. Like in the beginning, where I was like, a lot of people were saying, Trump should stop attacking Kamala's character. He should just stick to the policies. And I was talking to Trace about it, and he's like, are people saying the same thing to her? Are you going to tell her to just stick to the policies and stop attacking his character? And I'm all about like I hate hypocrisy. I hate double standards. We've seen so much of that towards Israel and in the last year especially. And so I was like, you know what? That's right. We're not telling her to not attack, Trump personally or character. Why are we telling Trump not to do the same? No, let him do the same.
Right. Yeah. I think we also just speaking from personal experience, I think we live in this world where your political standing is assumed based on where you live or just based on who your friends are. I mean, I have a lot of friends I actually have less friends now because after October 7th of last year, a lot of them were not educated, we'll
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
We're not educated on the circumstances and they don't want to speak to me. And okay, that's
Fine, good riddance.
good riddance. But
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of assumption, and you know what they say when you assume, but there's a lot of assumption that you're going to vote for XYZ based on where you live and or who you work with or who you work for. And I
Right.
feel like that the assumption is kind of ridiculous. You can't base your political standing or your thought process on that. You just can't.
No. And we're seeing that too. I think a lot of people, especially in Hollywood now, are coming out and being like, there's so many Trump supporters in Hollywood, but they're just like afraid to say so.
I think you're right. Yeah, Michael Rappaport was like is chastised daily because he supports Trump.
Right. I mean, but he was like he hated Trump, right?
Hated
But
him, right?
hated
He's
him.
from Boston, right?
He's from New York, no?
He's from New York?
I always thought he was from New York, but he might be from Boston. I don't know. But yeah, he hated him, and now he's like, I'm voting for him. So but I mean, I think it's so much. Like I remember I went to a Prager event like 4 years ago, and there was a lot of people from Hollywood there, and I was like, "You guys, let's take a picture." And they're like, "No, no, no pictures." Like they didn't want to even say that they were at a Prager event. And now, like, literally, I'm on panels with them, and they tell us, like, don't be political. And they will get up first, and they will be political. And I'm like,
Right.
okay, things have changed from, like, not wanting to take a picture to you're standing in a very, public sphere, saying what you actually think now, which is great.
Yeah, I think freedom of speech is something that needs to be exercised. I don't know, the most. Grammatically speaking, that was not a right sentence, but I, I feel like people are so petrified. You're right. I mean, Hollywood specifically, but people in general are
There's
so
so many people
petrified.
in Hollywood that
Yeah,
think exactly what you think, you know.
but they won't agree with you to your face.
Or I think what they're doing now is they're like, well, I don't like either candidate, which translates to I'm voting for Trump.
Right. That's so true. As we wrap up, I want you to tell everybody where they can follow you. I mean, you're
Huh.
pretty much at 1 million followers, so everybody
I
already knows.
was
But
before I started advocacy, but it's okay.
here we are. Tell everyone where they can follow you, and if you're speaking somewhere soon, let them know. And anything else that you want to say, you have the room.
Yeah, I would say just on Instagram, I have so many different Instagrams, but the main advocacy one is Dr. Sheila Nazarian with a DR. I have the model surgeon where we film live surgeries. The Spa 26 is more for injectables and lasers. I have my own skincare line called Nazarian Skin, which can be found on theskinspot.com. And then on X, I've recently become very active at Dr. Nazarian.
Love it.
And on TikTok, I'm on Dr. Sheila Nazarian.
Brilliant. Dr. Sheila Nazarian, thank you so much.
Thank you,
This
Ash.
was incredible, very educational, and I adore you even more. Didn't know that was possible.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me
Thank
on.
you. I'm a big fangirl.
Awesome.
So
Love it. Thank you so much.
thank you.
All right.
And we're stopping. Thank you so much.
Of course.
That was
fun.
incredible. You are